But for now, allow me to now introduce my panelists. Beginning from my immediate left, we have Dr. Churchill Saoke. Dr. Saoke is a leadership and governance expert and is also a lecturer at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. And just next to him is another lecturer and also a political analyst. His name is Oscar Omondi. Gentlemen, karibuni sana.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Maybe you can start from where CJ has left. I'm quite sure she's still continuing and matters femicide. This is something that is touching a lot of Kenyans, and she has said that she is endeavoring to ensure that the judiciary looks into SGBV cases and also the vulnerable to access justice. I'd like to pick your mind on that, Doc.
Well, this is a timely it's a timely statement and remarks made by the CJ because of the recent events that happened, especially where we are seeing events of murder related with crimes of passion. And I think that it is important for us to reflect deeply as a society how best we can reduce these femicides, how best we can reduce murders emerging from these scenarios. And I think that beyond the justice systems, I mean, there's need to strengthen the justice system by ensuring that all the institutions of the justice, the arm of justice, from the investigation all through to the arms of the court, take leading role in doing this. But then also it's also important to look at the other contributing factors. What is really making this to happen? What are the social factors that need to be considered that we can then deal with as preventive measures to help reduce these femicides?
Yeah. Oscar, and another thing that she has mentioned still on access to justice, because that is her core mandate, is the establishment of virtual courts. And by March, she says that this will be actualized by the judiciary. We have seen one of the issues that the judiciary has been plagued by is the issue of a lot of cases haven't been heard. And the virtual courts, COVID came and taught us, yes, we can actually do this, just like we see in other developed countries. I'd like you to touch on that.
Thank you very much, Troy, for inviting me and having this discussion of what Martha Koome is discussing today. One, before I even touch on the virtual court that you are asking, a little bit about this concept and whatever is going on about defining these deaths as just femicide. I think maybe we could have rushed because the person who gets to define a phenomenon or gets to define a discourse actually wins a debate about it because they own the definition of that particular discourse. I would prefer that they would have gone a little bit further, just as Dr. Hari has mentioned, to understand the root cause of whatever is happening. In my analysis, I think something different might be happening. Now we have serious problem of organ harvesting and selling of organs across the world. I'm told that in America or in Europe today, if you have a problem of kidney, for example, you take more than 200 days to get a new kidney. So there could be so much going on at play that if we just define them as femicide, then we might miss a lot. But I think, for example, whatever happened in Roy Sambu, that particular killing where I think actually she was a JKUAT student, I think so, or KU student. And she might have been lured to this particular place. But the killing where this person was actually using a hacksaw, it's like extracting things. Because Johnson Oduor, who is the government pathologist, says he's never seen such a thing because the nails were cut and all this. To me, it was something that could be a crime, not just a crime of passion, but a crime of somebody who was trying to maybe extract some probably body organs. And maybe if we investigate one case, other than just defining everything generally as femicide killings, then we end up losing a lot of things that should be investigated. So the investigation officers who are responsible for this should be able to do individual analysis to understand actually what was happening. The people who are arrested, the people who are standing charged for murder, like the lady who owns the Airbnb, and then the security guard who was there, and some people who are just part and parcel of people just doing their jobs. But they're held by police for the last almost 10 days. And the police were allowed to hold them. I don't know if they will be charged with murder.
Yeah, it's a good thing that you've mentioned, because also the CJ has mentioned the police in regards to how they handle these cases before actually they even make their way to court. Because you've seen a number of cases frustrated in the court because there was a shoddy investigation from the beginning.
Like, for example, if you connect the two, sometimes I try to connect the two between the femicide that has been going on, they call it so, and the Shakahola thing. You know, they're charged 97 people are being charged for murder of 237 people. This is chaos, because you know you are charged individually. That Troy, you killed blah 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 until 237th person, and you are 97. Even taking plea on such a case will take months, will take a number of months before they even finish taking plea. And how will this one go? And the bodies that were found at Shakahola, did they have kidneys, for example? Was there something more?
I think that's quite a deep, deep conversation that we will need to look at. Not only the cases themselves.
Yes. Over the virtual, I think this one, because everything is being done virtually now. For NGOs and government meetings are done virtually. I think doing this virtual court is a good thing in the right direction, but we need to prepare the infrastructure so that we don't have a lot of challenges, so that justice is not got. So long as we have a very good infrastructure where we can be able, everybody has to get a chance to access justice. You know, sometimes we have internet problems left and center, somebody witness might not be found, then it becomes a mess. So if we don't prepare the infrastructure very well, then we will end up with chaos again.
We will hold our words that by end of March we'll be having all the virtual courts, despite the infrastructure challenges that we've witnessed in the country over the years. But away from that, we will be touching something on the judiciary a little bit later on. But the head of state is in Italy for a 2-day, of course, it matters. He is the chair of Africa for climate change. But a number of people have raised issues and concerns in regards to the numerous visits that the head of state has made. Actually, as has been pinpointed in one of the papers, that he has made about 40 in the last 1.5 years or so. Doc, I would like you to touch on that. But the head of state has indeed mentioned that all these trips are going to bear fruits.
Well, the people of Kenya have got every justification to raise issues regarding the trips. And, you know, because the cost of living is high. People in the news, you'll hear about, you know, children not going to schools, and, you know, so their questions are genuine on the basis of government expenditures, whether it is really a priority. And I think it is incumbent on the executive to ascertain as to whether these travels really worth the prioritizing in comparison to some of the urgent expenditures that Kenyans expect. In general, it is important to understand that as a top diplomat of a country, he holds the key to the image of the nation, and also just portraying and projecting the country's foreign policy, projecting what it's aspired for the country to be seen in the community of nations. And that of course, it's needed to be done with moderation, considering resources that are available. And because, you know, the justification that sometimes, you know, when you look at a presidential entourage in travels, I mean, it's quite extensive, and it involves a lot of planning, a lot of resources, as compared to maybe when you just have the person in charge of foreign affairs traveling to represent him in some of these functions. So I think there is need for sort of like a balance of it, and I think that also when you also consider the fact that, you know, he's getting an entry into the international community, he's not compared to some of the other players that have been in that similar position before. He is an unstarter. He is starting and he's creating friends, he's creating networks. So maybe that is why from where he sits, he needs to get into this, and specifically projecting himself into the 2027 election. So when you look at those political angles from a political perspective, it makes sense for him to travel, but the fears of the people and the concerns of people about the cost of the travels is very genuine and also need to be looked at by the people by his handlers and advisors. Yeah.
Oscar, I remember last year the head of state did cut a number of foreign trips for top dignitaries, including PSAs, CSAs, and he said that was one measure to cut down the foreign travel and the cost that come with the travels. And with all fairness, in as much as a lot of people, and especially the opposition, are mentioning that, man, this is too much, the trips are too much. With all fairness, he's just 1 year in office. He needs to make links, contacts, and as Doc has talked about, he needs to the foreign policy of the country. But he said that, hold me to account that these foreign visits are bearing fruits.
And now, if you want to hold him to account now that the foreign visits are bearing fruits, I really don't have any evidence as we speak now for the last 40 that whatever fruits, because he needs to be accountable, really, that I used this amount to do this many trips, and whatever we got in return is this. It's like economy. We're running an economy, a long time. But
somebody would argue that the fruits are yet to come. But they are
then you can ask me that question when the fruits have come.
They're not ready.
See, the issue is that, again, to me, is where is he heading to? One time when Mandela became president of South Africa, he was asked the first question, what is your foreign policy? What do you want to do after being president of South Africa? He said, we will go where the money is. Yeah, and he was asked, where is the money? And he said, US and Japan, by that time, that's where we will go. By that time, the Japan economy was doing very well, and the US was doing very well. And he said, yes, we will go where the money is. But countries like, for example, Italy, I will tell you, they are doing as bad as we are. You get me right? So not so much that we can't gain from some of this trips.
But this one is crucial because being one of the top guys in Africa who are championing for climate change mitigations in Africa, I think this was a master tent for him.
I've never even understood Africa championing for climate change. Africa is not even part of the climate change discussion. The climate change, the people who are destroying the ozone layer and giving us a big problem are developed countries, and they are adamant that they're not going to stop. So Africa is only getting the bad part of it, and we are getting these floods. And the last time we were discussing El Nino. Now again, I told you after El Nino we'll end up with the La Nina, and now the sun is scorching hot. In Lodwar, I'm told people cannot sleep at night because it is too hot again. Now, give it another 1 month, you will start seeing deaths. We are not prepared again for the second time.
We're hoping we're not going to get there. We remember what the last drought did to the country and also to livestock. But away from that, Doc, yesterday the government did actually acknowledge that over 131,000 pupils who are supposed to join high school have not done that, and the Ministry of Education has moved with speed to ensure that they know exactly what's transpiring. But we know half of the problem has been the issue of money, and 131,000 students is a huge number. I remember the presidential task force. As soon as President William Ruto took over office, he established an education task force. One of the recommendations of the task force was to collapse all the bursaries. We have so many bursaries, from the NGCDF to the ones offered by foundations, to one offered by companies and even banks. I've seen some banks who have some foundations. A good example is the Wings to Fly. But this one of the recommendations that wasn't taken into action, and now we can see that a number of students, 131 students, have not joined high school.
Yes. Troy, it's a worrying situation, and we have to admit that if we don't handle it well, we are likely to get to the point where we are before the 100% transition. Remember, the previous regime have been very deliberate in ensuring that we have 100% transition all through the stages to the, up to the tertiary and university, and I think it's something that is very important in achieving the universal goal of having increased literacy of the population. So, you know, in as much as some of the recommendations, one of the recommendations that was made by that team was to collapse these scholarships. In my opinion, I don't believe that that really is the issue, because we need to ask ourselves, before this we've had decentralized scholarships that have been provided by the CDFs and these other organizations, and somehow it's been working. And the issue for me, I don't think is collapsing these things. The more we have decentralized scholarships, that people that have got different criteria of selection, the more we open up the space for opportunities for people for the students to get chances of getting these scholarships. In my opinion, I think that we need to ask ourselves that why is there increase in the reduction of transition? Why do we have less students not getting admission to secondary? It is because of fee problem. What is causing this fee problem over time? The cost of living is increasing. That's the bottom line. And the other thing is that there has been attempt by some of the headmasters and principals of schools to put hidden charges that scale up the fees for entry to an extent that you realize that what we see in the media is not necessarily what parents receive. And government officers will make declarations, roadside declarations, about the need of not increasing fees, which that does not necessarily happen. So in the long run, the parent is left helpless. You go with your child to school, you realize that there is a very hefty fee that you need to pay, and charges that you need to pay that you cannot afford. In the long run, you go back with your child. So I think that we needed to be more honest in our approach to dealing with this issue. They are 100% transition, and ensuring that the fees of the subsidized that government has been subsidizing, there is specific threshold that has been determined by the ministry. That policy is implemented down into until the lowest school to the letter. Because in that so doing, government operates for the good. And I think that if we open up space and allow newer charges, we are then limiting the number of entries into secondary schools. And over and above that, other than that stringent regulation, we also need to encourage more players to join in supporting the education through scholarships. And I strongly believe that collapsing these scholarships would be detrimental, because we will be giving singular criteria which in the long run will not appreciate the heterogeneity of the country and the pupils in terms of their needs. So the more we make it decentralized, the more we appreciate the heterogeneity, and the more we appreciate that the selection criteria need to be more adaptable to it becomes more centric to the student himself, based on the regions or wherever, or their economic status.
Yeah, Oscar, Doc seems to hold a different opinion and gives the reasons for that. I'm looking at Bungoma, Kajiado, Narok, Kilifi, Uasin Gishu. Many students haven't joined, part of the 131,000. And I remember yesterday speaking to a parent, and he said that NGCDF, you remember in Kirinyaga, there was almost a stampede, because parents there fighting for that just one opportunity for their kids to get the bursary. And I remember the parent said that unfortunately his kid would not be given bursary because the father does not hail from that constituency. It makes a lot of sense, because all the constituencies are given the NGCDF. But he says that this is one of the criteria. Education is education, you know?
Yeah. But again, when we come to definitions, I don't know to what level of education I need to go and research that is defined as basic education. Because I think for a fact, something like secondary education should be defined as basic education. According to our laws, basic education is a right. Everybody has a right to get basic education. If you go by that doctrine, that basic education, that education is a right for every Kenyan, then school fees should be legal. You shouldn't be you cannot make it a right for everybody, and you still put a condition that for you to get it, then you have to pay school fees. This is rubbish. That is why we end up with 130 and people scrambling to get government school fees or government bursaries that are also skewed in their distribution, which is a problem. It's a challenge. Again, CDF should really be checked again and see how do we distribute this particular fund, because it has many, many challenges after being in place for the last almost more than 10 years. No, more than almost 15 years now. It has its own challenges. Otherwise, for me as Oscar, being an educationist, I've never supported the 100% transition. Never.
Why is that?
Because I think the previous system that we had systematic way of releasing people out. For example, at class 7, long time ago, you got to get where you are good at, and if you want to be an artisan, you can live at that level. But the 844 system created a system where everybody is pushed to get a university degree. That for you to become successful, you have to get a university degree. That is not the way we need to do development. Development should be that the masses get skills and job opportunities. And skills are sometimes even much better when they're trained at workplaces. For example, we need to build in seriously and invest seriously in our Jua Kali sector, so that when we get this 130, remember last time I was here with you when we had already released KCSE, I told you that, hey Troy, 50,000 people have gotten E's. An E is a zero. That is the best definition of an E. It's a zero. It's nothing. Yeah, but now why do you have to go to university, to secondary, and spend 4 years and get nothing? Get me right. So I don't want to cast aspersion over this particular group 130 because they are mixed up. There are people who've gotten 380 and they're not in school, and the people who also fail and cannot get access because of failure at that level. But the thing is that the 100% transition should be checked, one, and see if we can get a way of sieving some at that level, and we get other areas where students can go and continue getting skills than what we call the secondary education, other than pushing 100%. Because when we have to try to evaluate now, when Professor Magoha came up with the idea of the 100%, then we end up with 50,000 E's because of the 100%. But if we could have sieved a few of these guys, probably we could have not ended up wasting their time in secondary school and going to get an E after 4 years of training. So there are many things that need to be rechecked and remove politicians out of this system. Let academics do their work. It is a political issue. It's a political issue, but education still, there are experts who can evaluate. There are research findings that should be done to check 100%. What are these challenges to what? And for the last, for example, 5 years, people who started with Magoha in his 100% policy, how have we ended up with this one? Now, this 130, it is because a lot of indicators shows that the economy is doing very, very badly. That is an indicator that the economy is doing badly. I tell you, for example, where I come from in Kisumu, it's chaos because the insecurity has gone so high. Why? Because we have those 50,000, now we have 130. Where are they going to end up with? In the streets of the cities, and the insecurity that we experience sometimes back in the country will creep back. But these are indicators of a failed system, of crisis because of the cost of living and because of lack of money.
All right. Doc, I still want to pick up where Oscar mentioned that indeed 131,000 is a huge number. And even if we have 100% transition, what he says makes a lot of sense. 4 years and then you end up having scoring an E. And maybe at 131, of course, there's somebody who has already done the KCPE. Maybe we should make our TVETs a little bit more attractive, because mostly when I was in high school, anything technical college is for those people who scored maybe D minus, But now TVET has changed. A lot has changed in the TVETs. We have also incorporated a number. Countries in the developed world are looking for people with such skills, plumbers, masons, all these people. Maybe we should try that route, because 131,000 is a huge, huge number.
Yes, and that is actually the basis of the theory behind 100% transition, where you do this multi-stage exits of students as per their performances. So where you have student transiting, so you have to establish a baseline that forms the basis of that acts as the basic level of education, that at least everybody must have that basic level. Then after that, it becomes multi-stage, and when the students get through every evaluation, they exit, and so that the people who get to the apex, they are not necessarily the whole group that came from the bottom. So it is sort of like a triangle, where with each of the stages within the triangle, people having somewhere where they are falling into. And when, like, for example, that means that, like, when you see in some of the developed countries, you have very strong emphasis onto the technical colleges, all right? Because this is where the skills are, this is where the technical skills are, these are the people who do the work, these are the people who know how to do the how. And then a very small segment go into the university, because these are more abstract people. These are the thinkers. They just think, they don't necessarily do, they do designs. And, because of our misunderstanding of this, that is what brought what Oscar was raising, where you have the population has been made to believe that the highest level of success begins by you getting to the university. That's a lie. All right?
Yeah.
Not everybody is supposed to go to the university. Majority of the people should actually get to the technical colleges, because these are the people who hold the key to the development of the country. And the smaller few go up into being the thinkers of the country. So when you do that, then you realize that the cake becomes very big. And because of this misunderstanding where everybody needs to go to the university, even the expectation of the industry changed, because they think that when you go to the universities, we expect you to do certain things. Yet those things that you expect a university student to do, a graduate to do, are things that should have been done by people who've gone to technical colleges. Just hold on before you come in. So it is important to look at these multi-stage exits with a visualization that everybody who exits into every stage, it becomes a platform for success. And I think that is the key point, that when you exit into the technical college, you graduate with a skill, that skill is acceptable within within the employment sector, and you are paid well for it, and then it becomes something that you feel you get value, and you feel that you are also part of, you are valuable in the society, so that you don't feel like, I wished if I had gone to the university, then I would have been much better.
It's true, because looking at what the head of state said, that over 130 young men and women have been employed in the affordable housing project, and looking at the bulk of this, other than the architects, mostly they are artisan. We have the masons, the plumbers, we have the electrician, and this ecosystem will be boosted by TVETs if at all we do that. And it's a good thing that you mentioned that this is where the whole world is looking into. There's something you wanted to add, Oscar?
Yeah. Again, just to remind you that in the previous system, we didn't have like the TVETs you talk about. We had them, but like in the village polytechnics, there were not as many.
Yeah.
But what was there that we should be able to go back to? The secondary schools that we had specific secondary schools that were offering some particular technical courses.
Centers of excellence.
The centers of excellence. Yes. So we had like Mwawego Technical, or we had Kisumu. Kisumu, for example, Kisumu Day School was a secondary school, but was a technical school. So we should make our secondary schools technical schools, some part of it. For example, mostly day schools. Part of them, so that we build this thing, because other than just building the infrastructure called the TVET, it's just too heavy investment. But our secondary schools, some of them, we should make some part of them to have a technical bit, so that these people graduate with technical know-how. Number two, you're asking me about the president going to Italy. I'm sure the president must come back and say that we've secured 800,000 jobs in Italy. We secured 200,000 jobs from Germany. We are exporting unskilled labor, which is very dangerous. For any development of any state, the unskilled people, the masses, should be able to work. as a government, don't think so much about the people whom Dr. is saying, people who can go to the APEC. These people can work anywhere. These people can do a lot of things. But when the masses, those populations in Uhuru Park or in political rallies, who will go there on a Monday or Tuesday morning and fill that place because it's a public rally, because they don't have anything to do, that is where you should invest in, on unskilled people. If you invest on unskilled people, automatically development will be there. And the reason why, for example, the dollar is going up, one, because of what? Because they're not doing manufacturing, because they're not producing. We are importing, because they claim, the Kenya Kwanza claim that the problem of the dollar going to 161 now is because of petroleum and all this trade. It doesn't. It only controls only 20% of that exchange. What controls the high rate of our currency is import-export. The fact that you import so much and export so little makes your currency become useless, because you're just a buying and consuming population. But if we can invest so much on manufacturing, get these people who are doing manufacturing to do subsidies and reduce things like the cost of power. Currently doing even a welding, if you go to a welding guy to make for you a window, they will tell you, yes, we will charge you for labor, but pay for power. They give you that token number, just pay for power, because it is too expensive. So you cannot do manufacturing here. If you can't do manufacturing here, our economy dies. But whom do you want to invest in terms of manufacturing? Those unskilled people. Those are people who are supposed to put a lot of investment, because those are the masses. Those are the masses that we need to invest in. So when you're investigating this, at the end of the day, for example, I went to school, but how does my schooling help me apart from having the knowledge I have? It pays my small bills, but it mostly helps 80% the society that I come in. So when you educate somebody, you don't educate them for themselves. Troy was educated as a broadcaster, but how does it help? Troy has very small bills to cater for himself. Mostly, he helps society. So when we have that idea, then we will see the reason why other developed countries don't charge this rubbish thing called school fees. Because you're not developing these people for themselves. You are developing these people for the society. And
it makes sense, because the informal sector forms bulk of the Kenya working force, as opposed to developed countries. And Kenya is still a developing country, the mason, the welders. We really need these people, and I'm quite sure that the government should be looking at this, so that we may look at this number, 130, and try to actually reduce the number.
You know, when you look at even the leveraging on the informal sector, what we have branded informal sector, some of the products that these people produce are huge, and I think that it only takes a deliberate government to initiate a policy that makes this local production from these Juakali sectors become, we create a market for them locally and look for a market for them outside. I mean, before Germany began to become the major producer of automobiles, look at the vehicle that they produced, which is still recognized today as I mean, if you have the old Volkswagen that was built by the Germans during the war, you don't want to sell it, because it is heritage. I mean, we still can take that mentality amongst our people through the Juakali products that we are producing, accelerate that production for our local consumption, and even look for external export. Then in the long run, some of these people, and I have done this myself through some, in some of the works I've done in engineering. These guys, they know how to do it. But sometimes all they need is somebody to think for them, to make what they're doing a little more modern and more, more bringing a thought process into it. So if there is convergence of these levels, you have an empowered, the people who know how to do. And there is convergence with the people who can think. I can tell you, we can actually produce things for this country. And produce even for external market.
Very well. It's a good thing that you guys are both lecturers, so you actually know exactly what you're talking about. Oscar, away from we've mentioned housing, and the public participation is currently underway. The courts halted, the High Court had halted, and the Court of Appeal did upheld the same decision. And looking at the public participation that is currently underway, some people have poked holes because when the court had stopped the MPs were in their constituencies and the public participation kept going on. Yesterday it was, I remember the committee, the finance committee had sittings with people with disabilities, and they raised a number of issues, including the cost of the house. This is the public participation. This is something that should have been done a little bit earlier and comprehensively. This is something the court even pointed out, that there wasn't adequate public participation in regards to the housing agenda by the president.
Yeah, I mean, the public participation that is done, first of all, it is illegal. Yeah. You know, there's a court in Kisumu that stopped it. But parliamentarians decided to go ahead and do it. Now, we will end up in chaos because the courts will not move when one court has already blocked even the public participation to be carried out. Now, again, the construction, I don't know. Because what I see in TV is that most of these houses are almost complete. You know, the construction is going on and they are launching more houses. Some of them are just complete, just waiting for finishing. So it is difficult. And now we are doing the public participation, whether the project should go on or not. And the Court of Appeal has stopped it. It is a bit chaotic on how things should happen. And even if you couple this with the meeting that the president had with the Chief Justice, just 2 days after the meeting, then the Court of Appeal made its own pronouncement about this. So I really don't even know. It is too early for us to even try to do a political analysis about this discourse because it is disorder. It is disorder. But again, disorder sometimes is a political instrument, can be a political instrument because the system is being clogged by the happenings of how this particular administration is trying to work. And they're trying to convince the court that, let's do this. But you see, the Chief Justice is in a very awkward situation. I'm sure she doesn't have the phone number of this magistrate who sits in Kisumu, who made that particular decision. She doesn't even know what is happening in Kakamega Court because the High Court sitting in Kakamega, and there's a High Court sitting in Kisumu, and there's a High Court sitting in Nyeri. And
the good thing that the court pronounced itself on that.
Yes, the court's pronounced, and she doesn't have any power even to stop that court. She doesn't know what to do because now the system, the political system, wants us to move on. So even the public participation, one of the reasons why what the appeals court raised, that is not into the public interest, that this one should go on. I don't know if January salaries will...
No, actually, a number of Kenyans are waiting to see whether the government will go ahead, because that will be an illegality in regards to that. But still on the same, the Attorney General has been on the receiving end. Some of Kenyans, including Kotu Secretary General, have faulted the Attorney General for the advice because he is the chief government advisor. I remember the CASs were blocked. Our police going to Haiti has been blocked. Housing has had its own speed bumps. The same thing has happened on Social Health Insurance Fund. And they have pointed out that the AG is on the receiving end in regards to what he advises the president to do.
That is wrong. I think if you ask me, an advisor, if you appoint me, Troy, to become your advisor, my work is to advise. And your work is to either decide to take the advice or not. So whether the Attorney General is advising, it depends with the person who is being advised to take the advice. It's either the Attorney General is incompetent or the President is not listening to the Attorney General. So blaming it on the AG could be is an advisor to government, but it doesn't. Advisors, you don't kill them. There are people who are just raising, can I advise you on this particular thing? But the way you want to do it, the decision relies on you. So the Attorney General could be advising or could be incompetent over this particular, because they have lost all their cases. And why are they losing cases? For example, issue of public participation. This is a very simple thing. Just do it. Why do you have to bring in acts of parliament without public participation? These are small things, these are obvious things, that this one will fail. And most of them have failed because even the CAS, when President Ruto appointed the chief administrative secretaries, there was no public participation. And there was no public participation to what? Uhuru Kenyatta appointed only 26 in office, which were legal. Ruto appointed 50. So the court says that the difference between that 50 and 26, like 24, the additional 24, that particular number wasn't subjected to public participation.
And also the High Court has mentioned that the CAS is not enshrined anywhere in the Constitution.
Yes.
But either way, we witnessed a number of cases where the government did not obey any court orders. I would like you to pick your mind on that, Doc, because I do even remember the BBI also fell into the same quadrant. Remember the back and forth, the AG should have done A, B, C, D, and the High Court, the Court of Appeal, and even the Supreme Court dealt a blow on the BBI and case closed. We are having the same speed bumps when it comes to some of the government projects that that the government is intending to do, and especially on housing.
The executive will always want to implement their policies and push them, however much they push the people to the limit. And I think that with the independence and some of these judgments that are now coming up by the courts against the executive and the legislature, it is an advantage, and it really shows, the separation of powers, which really was the spirit of the 2010 Constitution. So this is something that should actually continue. It works in the best interest of the people if the executive and the judiciary and the legislature do not agree. Because that disagreement then brings divergence of thought, which makes at some point the people not to be vulnerable. Because you're imagining a scenario where the executive has control of all the organs of government, and they push the people to the limit. The people have nowhere to go to.
Yeah, right? But actually, what Troy is, just to interject a bit, what Troy was trying to ask is that we've gotten into a situation where all of them, like now the executive is not doing anything. All the projects of the executive, from appointments, even the virtual courts. Yes. The Uduma thing.
Yes, actually somebody filed a case.
It's actually an advantage. It's actually an advantage so that they go back to the drawing board and do things right. No. Because if we just agree and the courts agree with them, like for example the aspect of the national housing. I mean, the population is so helpless about it. They don't want it because they're not sure about how this thing is going to be implemented. So anything against it is an advantage to the world.
Advantage, yes, but
all right. Just a minute. I'm informed by my director. We need to cross over to the forum, a mining sector forum that is currently at the Serena Hotel. Still with my two gentlemen, they disappear. We might have the, would that pose some of the challenges that have been posed, including matters, drugs and security as well?
Yes, for me, I think where the free visa, from where we started, we're discussing about the femicide issues. You see, some of the people who were arrested were actually found to be Nigerians who were in Kenya illegally without documents.
Oh, okay. Just a minute, because Doctor has quite an emergency. Maybe I would like you to touch on that, and then maybe you can continue with Oscar. That, in as much as it boosts a lot of things, including the money that we'll be having, it boosts trade. Of course, it boosts a number of sectors, because these guys are coming with the foreign exchange that we really want in our country. How can we ensure that it becomes only a profit and not a loss for the country?
I think the visa-free, for me, the visa-free policy is misguided, because there are very key roles of visas in countries in terms of regulating security, and also even just putting the country putting the dignity of the country in the community of nations. I mean, one of the things that makes everybody want to go to the United States is the myth around how you get their green card and how you get their visa. And people will spend huge sums of money just to go and get it. So why are we making a country so cheap to get in? Why are we allowing a country to be a gateway for many things? So I think for me, it is it is something that should have been thought through in terms of looking at who are the segments of people who really need this waiver, the foreign direct investors, some of the key manufacturers and things like that, or maybe some key personnel that will then infuse very core skills to our economy. So just opening it up is misguided, and somehow it's not practical.
Oscar?
Yes.
Doc says maybe we have opened a kind of worms in as much as we are going to get a lot of foreign exchange.
Yes, I agree and don't agree. But the other thing is that there are many challenges of implementing such a policy. It's because of one, the thing is that the free visa, you need to securitize so much so that we are able to track who comes. Because what was the idea is, the question is, why do we have to have visas? What is the reason of having visas? Because before we just decide, okay, we don't have visas, we should have gone back and checked, why did we have to? Because we need to control population. Control population to know who is here, doing what, at what time. That is why it was part of controlling populations and governance in terms of migration, because people migrate. It can support maybe tourism, for example, can support our markets, for example. You know, there are policies like this that have been implemented elsewhere. For example, the emergence of Dubai, which was not a very big powerhouse long time ago. Yeah. The thing was that what the Dubai did, that they made a policy that getting goods into Dubai is free, tax-free. And removing goods out of Dubai is also tax-free. But Dubai was not doing manufacturing of these goods. So people from China, manufacturers from China and Japan and all over the world that were doing manufacturing around Asia will bring their goods tax-free into Dubai. People who want to buy them mostly from Africa and wherever will go and get them from Dubai tax-free. So how does it make money in Dubai? What they do is that when you are there for like 5 or 6 days or 10 days, you have to live there, pay for hotel and all this, because it's a marketplace. What they did, they only created the marketplace. And now the immigration, the influx of the people there, they get their returns. Very good policy. All of a sudden, Dubai became. So this is a good idea. But implementation should be based on some other things to address challenges, mostly securitization, everyday securitization. But if you just allow people to flock here, we will have organized crimes being done here. Because even, and you know, in this time where we have social media, I even suspect that even the people who lure these girls to these Airbnbs are not in the country. They could just be luring them through social media, place them in a particular place, get an Airbnb somewhere, apply for that. So the person who is coming to do this crime is just somebody who is also only going there, placed, do the crime and leave. So there's no contact. It becomes very difficult to even investigate to know who committed this crime, because it is now has an international perspective, because we have social media, we have the internet, where it cuts across. Somebody in wherever can always lure somebody from, for example, Roy Sambu or from Kenyatta University to a Roy Sambu Airbnb room, which are also online things. So when we're dealing with these ones, we must know that how do we secure our borders? Otherwise, we will be dealing with something that is
Indeed, very well said, because Kenya is one of the countries in the region that has quite porous borders. We have seen in Mandera, in Lamu, we have seen some attacks, and also we have seen in court a number of foreigners arraigned because of being in the country illegally. That's where we put a cap on this first hour, but on this second hour we are delving into matters affordable housing, and more specifically we are engaging the specific engineers who are mandated with actualizing this project, and some of the challenges that we don't see, some of the profits that we might see, we are going to put those things into perspective in just a little while. You're watching Channel 1 News Check. It's time for me and my colleague Byron Abuli to take a quick break. We'll be right back.